Hey there, people! So today I am bringing you my complete Terraria 1.4 Journey's End NPC housing, happiness, and pylons guide. First of all, I'm going to review housing requirements in Terraria, and then I'm going to talk about what's new in 1.4 as far as the happiness and the pylons. So if you already know the housing part, feel free to skip ahead a couple minutes. I'll add a timestamp in the description and maybe in a comment as well. The basic housing requirements for NPCs actually do remain essentially the same as in previous versions of Terraria. Each NPC that can join your village requires their own house, of course. If they die, generally, if there's a house available for them, a replacement NPC will spawn. NPCs only spawn during the daytime hours. It's also possible for them to spawn in certain natural houses away from your base. This would often happen in the past, particularly if you added a light source to a floating island house or a house under a giant tree. It seems like this part may have been mitigated in 1.4. I haven't seen any NPCs spawning in those underground houses and actually had trouble assigning one to one of those when I was testing it out. But a valid NPC house in Terraria must occupy at least 60 blocks of total area, including the frame blocks, the outer walls. So the basic minimum dimensions are 5 by 12, 6 by 10, 7 by 9, or 8 by 8 in either direction, whether you build it tall or wide with those dimensions. A house does not need to be a box. It can be any shape as long as it fits the requirements. It does also have to have player-placed background walls, comfort furniture, like a light source, and an entrance. So comfort furniture can be a chair and a table, often is. There are other alternative options, such as a workbench in place of the table, basically a flat surface furniture object, and a place for them to sit or lay down. The entrance itself can be a trap door, a regular door, a tall gate, or platforms. The entrance actually does not need to be usable. It just has to be essentially a way that exposes the house to the outside world via one of those methods, so that in theory there is an entrance to the outside world, whether the NPC can actually use it or fit through it or not. The floor of the house cannot be all platforms. It must have at least one solid block that is not right up against the walls for them to stand on, particularly at night or when they're walking back and forth and stuff. They need at least one solid block. Note that it is also possible to make a house too large. So if the area of your house is 750 blocks or more, it's actually too large, it won't qualify. If there's no way for them to simply walk into your house via the theoretical entrance, they will still enter that house while you're away, usually when you're somewhere else in the world, or when you exit and re-enter the game, or whatever it may be. It's also possible for interior objects or blocks to obstruct the interior of the house and disqualify it, so that will actually obstruct the area. In some cases, I even had an instance where I put my piggy bank on the table or workbench in an NPC house, and all of a sudden it didn't count as a house anymore. So there are things that can obstruct the interior of the house and disqualify it as a valid NPC house. Also, nearby crimson or corruption blocks can disqualify a house. If there's too much crimson or corruption in the area, it may no longer be valid. However, hallow is okay. You can use hallow areas for housing, and that's one strategy that some people do, is let the hallow take over, and that way your NPCs won't move out. I don't like that personally, but some people do that. So ideally, I would recommend you should always have one extra unoccupied house ready for your next NPC to spawn. Until you have all of the town NPCs, of course. There are, as of 1.4, there are 25 town NPCs, including Santa. Even my old prison designs for houses, they do still work. There's just far less reason to use them in 1.4. You're no longer trying to cram all of your NPCs into one area. With 1.4, they've added big incentives not to cram all of your NPCs into one area. So yes, this kind of design that I've used in the past myself, just for the sake of efficiency, it'll still work, but your NPCs aren't going to be happy. We're going to get to that in a second. So you're probably not going to want to do this anymore. And so this is a new design that I've come up with. It's a basic design, of course. I'm sure improvements are possible, but technically these are 3 valid houses. There's one there, and this main area is also one. I put the chair just up on a platform. This is sort of crammed all this stuff in for efficiency. And as you can see, you can actually open the chests above and below you, including when you're at your crafting station. So that's just something I came up with for, you know, maximum storage. Obviously, you may still want more room as far as crafting stations and so on as well. But that's something I came up with. Now, you can, of course, also reassign which NPCs live in which houses by using the housing menu, which is just above your equipment. There's a little house icon. That's your housing menu. And that will then show little banners for which NPCs are assigned or living in which houses. And you can then select their icon and assign them somewhere. You can also use this question mark to see, yes, that is suitable housing. This little area down here, however, is not. So just for an example. And you can also, you know, arguably in 1.4, you may as well take the time to make your houses look nice. Obviously, I haven't really done that. I did, you know, build a little rooftop garden. I'm all about functionality, so this is a functional house, but you may as well make them look nice because you're not going to have so many NPCs living in an area generally at this point. If you are interested in making your houses look nice, you can use a hammer to slope surfaces and also to create stairs from platforms. And also keep in mind that you can craft a bed and place it in a house and then use that as your spawn point. You'll notice I put one here, and this is still a valid house. It doesn't have a chair. The bed counts in place of the chair, and that allows me a place to spawn without taking valuable space down here. So there's a lot of options, and you can get very creative. So to set a spawn point with a bed, you actually don't need to meet all of the NPC requirements. You just need the structural requirements. You don't need, you know, the table and chair and stuff if you just want a place to set a bed and a spawn point. So keep that in mind as well. Now, what is different in 1.4? Well, instead of just one big NPC village, you will want to make several smaller biome villages. Note that we also now have block swap, so that also gives you a way of making your houses prettier, improving your houses over time. You can upgrade the looks of your houses easily. I can just grab some stone and swap it in place of this wood or some bricks or whatever I want to put in there and keep the structure intact. Block swap is great for that. But with 1.4, NPCs now do not like to be crowded all in one area. You'll actually be rewarded for splitting them up into different areas and for keeping them happy. Most importantly, if they're happy enough, you can then buy and use fast travel pylons. That's what this green thing is here. And basically, these allow warping between the different villages that you've created, similar to a mirror or a teleporter. Also, the happiness of your NPCs likewise affects the prices that they sell items for. If they're happy, they'll sell things for lower prices. If they're unhappy, they'll actually raise their prices. So you can get them down to 75% of their normal price, or if they're very unhappy, they might raise their prices as high as 150% of normal price. So your happiness also affects that. Now, happiness is affected by the number of NPCs in the village, the location where they are housed, and how much they like each other. It seems they are happiest with only 2 NPCs in a village, although 3 can be mostly tolerable. Ideally, you actually, if you're wanting to get that pylon, you want only 1 neighbor for each NPC. So that's why I have 2 here. Just 1 neighbor in a 25 block distance, and no more than 3 neighbors within 120 blocks if you want to keep your NPCs happy. Each NPC also has preferences as far as which biome they are housed in and who their neighbors are. These happiness preferences are very important in obtaining the pylons and in getting good prices. So they each like and dislike specific biomes and specific other NPCs. Ideally, you want to locate them each in a biome that they like, but at least you don't want to put them in a biome that they don't like. And the same idea for relationships. It's best if you situate them with neighbors that they like, but at least if you put them with people they don't dislike, that'll do. You can check which biome they prefer. Actually, I just showed you a chart there, but you can also check it in-game via the bestiary. If you've talked to them, you have to talk to them before it'll show you this, but once you've talked to them, it will show you in their little bio in the bestiary which biome they prefer. So that's another way of finding out that information quickly while you're already in the game. And also, of course, they will sometimes mention both their biome preferences and other NPCs that they like or dislike in their happiness dialogue. So if I go up and talk to the guide, we'll ask him about his happiness, and he'll talk about, is he happy with the amount of space he has? Is he feeling crowded? Sometimes they'll mention whether they like the people they're with or not. So I'm including a chart here of relationships where both NPCs either like or dislike each other, on both ends of that equation. So green is where the people, each NPC, they both like each other, and red is where they both dislike each other. It gets more complicated than that. You can see not all the NPCs are on this chart because not all of them have a situation where they both either like or dislike. There are a lot of love-hate relationships where one person likes the other person doesn't like them back, dislikes them. And there are also a lot of one-way like and dislike preferences as well, where like one person likes somebody, but the other person doesn't have an opinion on it. The other person, or there's somebody who dislikes somebody, the other person doesn't have an opinion on it. So it's a whole complex web of likes and dislikes. And I couldn't fit that all in here. I actually tried to put it all, but when I went beyond doing this much, it started to get, really hard to read. So you'll need to find workable combinations of biome and relationship preferences if you want to get those pylons and if you want to get good prices. But there are some combinations that work well. For instance, the dye trader and arms dealer, they both like the desert and they happen to get along well. The dye trader likes the arms dealer doesn't have an opinion on the dye trader. And the dryad and the painter also, as well as the witch doctor, they like the jungle and they also get along in a similar manner. There is a full chart of all this information that has been compiled on the wiki, so big thanks to the wiki people for doing their hard work as always. I will be putting links in the description, 3 different links actually, for the housing, the happiness, and the pylons. So check that out, and as always, big thanks to the wiki. Once you do have 2 NPCs in an area and at least one of them is sufficiently happy, then you can buy the pylon for that biome. And it has to be an NPC. You have to have at least one NPC who actually sells things. So let's see. Yeah, see, she doesn't really like being here, so she's not going to sell it to me. I got this before, actually. Of course, the guy doesn't sell anything. But basically how it works, the important thing is that they don't dislike each other. At least one should sell things and like the biome that they're in. You need somebody who is happy where they are and sells things. So the dryad doesn't like the forest. She likes the jungle, so she's not selling me that. But once you have it placed, so even though I got this before and these aren't the people who sold it to me, and dryad doesn't particularly like it here, once you have it and you have it placed, you simply need 2 or more NPCs housed at each endpoint to use it. At that point, it ignores the happiness. You just need people present. But you can also get away with, if you're trying to get the pylon, you can get away with having 3 NPCs in the area if one of them loves one of the others, because then that will make them happy enough that they're with somebody they really love, and then they will sell you the pylon as well. So because it still works after you've placed it and bought it, regardless of who is present, as long as you have enough people, you can move NPCs around if needed to help you buy and then use these pylons. And in fact, they don't necessarily need to actually be in their house, as long as their house is assigned to them, and they appear to count their neighbors by who is assigned to adjacent houses rather than whether they're actually close to them. It appears to be counted by the house mostly. So they do at least need to be close to their house in order to register as happy. So even if they're not in their house, as long as they're close, and then as long as they're close enough to their house, they can sell the pylons. So the pylon will only work when it is placed in the correct biome for that pylon. Pylons will not work during invasions or boss fights, and they will also not work in graveyards. To use a pylon, you can just right-click on it. It takes you to the map, or whatever, when this comes to other systems, or if you've reassigned it, whatever your open activate button is, you can use that on the pylon. This will take you to the map screen. You'll just need to locate another pylon and then you can just, it's a left click or whatever your use attack button is in order to actually use that pylon. And there you go. It's as simple as that. And you can see my horribly ugly desert houses. So that's just how it works. It's nice and simple. You can also just go to the map screen you can also just stand near enough within 5 blocks of the pylon, open your map instead of clicking on the pylon, and then just click on another place you want to go, another pylon. And it's an excellent fast travel system. It allows you to get around the world very quickly. In total, there are up to 9 pylons that can be purchased and placed around the world. The forest, desert, snow, jungle, ocean, cavern, hollow, and mushroom biome pylons, biome specific. Of course, a couple of those you'll only probably be able to use in hard mode, or at least definitely the hollow only appears in hard mode. And the mushroom biome, the truffle's the only guy who really likes it there, but you might be able to get somebody happy enough before that. The last pylon you'll see there is the universal pylon. It is only available from the zookeeper after completely filling up the bestiary, so that's going to be a really hard one to get, but you can use it anywhere once you do, because you're literally going to have to find all the monsters in the game and all of the characters in the game. So this pylon system is tremendously useful, as I say, for getting around the world quickly. It makes large worlds much more viable, for instance, and it also makes elevators and things like that rather less necessary. So, hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.